Imagine that your feet are hovering like 3 feet above the ground. That's as grounded as your soul wants to get, because if you were to be any more grounded, it would actually really hinder what you have to do.
Like, I think you gave me permission. Like, I've really spent like years grounding, trying to ground, and it doesn't feel natural to ground. And I think that there is a judgment there. And so like you gave me permission to let that all go. So I really just am in deep gratitude and thank you.
Welcome to the Akashic Recordings. I'm Annette Dalloo, Akashic conduit, channel, and spiritual guidance coach.
And I'm Julia Nalivaiko, storyteller and creative producer of conscious media content, such as this podcast. What you're about to hear is a real-life Akashic Records session with Annette and one of her clients, recorded with their permission. For privacy, their names have been changed, but everything else is real.
Stay tuned to the end of each episode, where we deep dive into subjects that come up throughout the session.
In this episode, we meet Marianne, who has come to Annette to learn about her soul origin and soul purpose, to see if it explains her feelings of not fitting into mainstream society.
Thank you to Archangel Metatron and Archangel Sandalphon for being here and allowing us access to the Akashic Records and giving us the information that we need. Thank you so much. And we are looking at her soul purpose, her life purpose, soul origin. So where do we need to go first? Soul origin. Okay, so do you understand what I mean by soul origin first?
I have assumptions, but I would like your direct clarity. Is it the planet from which I originated from?
Yes. So not everybody originates from a particular planet. Some people originate from stars, supernovas. Some people come directly from divine source energy to Earth. Some people don't actually go anywhere else. So it just really depends on who you are and what your soul is. The soul origin is sort of where your soul first became like an individualized soul. If you consider the fact that energy can neither be created or destroyed. From that perspective, all souls have always existed. The way in which you exist is the difference, whether you're part of the collective of divine source energy or whether you have sort of broken off and become an individual piece of divine source energy. So yes, that is the soul origin. So your soul originated in a place that was not too far from Earth, actually. It's not in this solar system, but it is in an adjacent galaxy. You chose to come to Earth when you did because you had heard echoes of other souls' experiences on Earth, and you were very curious about what those experiences would be. You were not part of the creation of Earth. That is something that other souls have been a part of. If you imagine millions of souls coming together to create something, that is what happened when Earth was created. And there are many souls on this planet that were part of that process. You, however, were not. You decided to come to Earth after Earth had already been created. You were living out other incarnations on the planet that you originated from. The reason why you broke off divine source energy and became individualized on this planet was simply because you were curious about it. There was a part of divine source energy that was curious about this particular planet, and you wanted to know more. You wanted to know how it functioned. You wanted to know what the makeup was. It was almost as if you were looking at it from a scientific standpoint, because it was an energy that you hadn't really experienced before. One of the reasons why you decided to originate on this particular planet is because you felt that your unique set of skills that you have as a soul were going to be very beneficial to help quantify the duality on the planet and help bring it to a balance. You are a very high vibrational being. As you have incarnated on this planet, your energy is higher than this planet. And so you feel much lighter and much higher than this planet in terms of energy. You were successful in creating a balance in the planet that you decided to incarnate in first. It was easier to find that balance within that planet because there was nothing energetically that was working against you or that was working to the contrary of what you wanted to do. It was the perfect space for the experiment that you wanted to make. You were not the only person on this planet who helped with this job. There were 17 others. 17 is a very auspicious number, especially when it comes to the main guardians of a particular planet. Earth has 17 guardians. Every planet has 17 guardians. You were one of those guardians on this original planet that you decided to incarnate on. There were no other souls on this planet other than the 17 guardians. That's the biggest difference. That's why the job was easier to bring that planet into balance. It's almost a mathematical equation that needs to happen in order to balance any energy. And you inherently know what that equation is and what is necessary to make that balance happen. You loved this planet. It was like your child. But once it was balanced and complete, you didn't have a need to be there. Once that was complete, you decided to explore other places until you finally decided that you were going to try to incarnate on Earth, which is one of the more difficult things that a soul can do at this time. You dove right in. Okay, so most of the time, what souls will do is that they will incarnate as trees or plants or animals, and that helps them get acclimated to Earth's density. And you didn't really do a lot of that. You only did it a couple of times, and then you were like, yeah, I'm ready. I can incarnate as human. And you did, and you were like, my God, why did I do that?
I know that feeling. It's very alive.
It's very much about like somebody just handed your soul like a 500-pound weight and was like, here you go. And you were just like, wait, I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready for that. That wasn't supposed to happen. Okay. Your first incarnation was pretty rough. But what it did for you, it actually really helped you because it did give you a really good idea of what was necessary to find that energetic balance. What they're showing me, had you done the typical incarnation where you were grass, flowers, trees, animals, all those things, it would have been much more gradual, but you may have gotten so used to the energy that you may not have realized the extreme measures that need to take place in order to transcend the duality on the planet. This really did give you your marching orders, so to speak. This first lifetime, you're like, okay, I get it now. Okay, I understand why this is hard. Okay, I understand what I need to do. And the first thing you're saying is like, I need to not be so attached to the earth. That was one of the things that you had decided early on as a soul, is that the more attached you are to the earth, the heavier it was going to be, the harder it was going to be for you to stay in your own balance. Because in order for you to bring balance to the planet, you needed to be able to not be stuck in one side or the other. But imagine that your feet are hovering 3 feet above the ground. That's as grounded as your soul wants to get, because if you were to be any more grounded, it would actually really hinder what you have to do. So this can result oftentimes in you feeling not connected to the earth, feeling not fully grounded, feeling a little topsy-turvy at times. And that is by design. Your soul said, I need to do this because I cannot be weighed down by what's going on around me. The second part of this, though, is that it actually made it difficult to connect to certain people. There are only certain people on this planet that you're able to really super connect with and understand, and have them understand you, because of the fact that you are hovering above the earth as opposed to being fully grounded in it. That was your main soul purpose. It's what your soul is very good at doing. The other soul purposes that you picked up while you've been here is that you want to bring beauty into this world. You have so much compassion for the difficulty and the harshness of this planet, but you also appreciate the absolute stunning beauty that this planet has. You want to remind people about this beauty because not everybody sees it all the time. And you want people to really focus on it and understand it and appreciate it and see it, because it is unlike anything that you've seen on any other planet. Every planet has its own unique beauty, and Earth is no different. There are other places that are more beautiful than Earth, but Earth has this uniqueness about it because of the duality. The contrast in energy allows for more appreciation of that beauty. Your third soul purpose is to touch the hearts of others. I'm seeing you literally walk up to somebody and touch their heart chakra, and you're lighting it up. You're allowing people to see their hearts, to live through their hearts, and to live with love. There is so much love on this planet. If you can imagine the heart bursting with love, that is this planet. And you want to protect that love. You want to cultivate that love. You want to make sure it survives on this planet.
This is beautiful. Thank you. Everything you touched upon is very resonant, aligned. Like, I think you gave me permission. Like, I've really, really spent like years grounding, trying to ground, and like knowing I'm an alien, like literally, and it doesn't feel natural to ground. And I think that there is a judgment there. And so like you gave me permission to let that all go. So I really just am in deep gratitude and thank you.
So we've just heard Marianne's soul origin and soul purpose discussion. Annette, why is soul origin and soul purpose an important subject matter in your sessions?
Well, soul origin does really help you to know the soul signature, the nature of your soul. And so in various different situations, it can help you understand why you operate the way that you do. For Marianne, as we heard, it validated her challenge that she was having in grounding herself. When every other bit of information she had received was like, you need to ground more, you need to ground more. And in fact, she doesn't need to ground more because that's not part of what she's here to do. It can be really helpful to know your soul origin, just to know where you've been, what kind of experiences you've had. Maybe you have a hard time being here on this earth because you feel different than everybody else, like Marianne does. And it can really help you understand how to find other souls that are like you. Because if you don't know who your soul family is, or if you still haven't found people who are connected to you, you can kind of know how to energetically call in that person into your experience.
So in relation to her soul origin, the first planet that she went to, you say that she went there to help quantify the duality on the planet and help bring it to a balance. What does this actually mean?
When you talk about levels of duality, Earth is incredibly dualistic. From what I've seen, the glimpses that I've seen is that on other planets, they can have various sort of scales of duality. So the image that they gave me was of a planet that was not as lively as ours. It was very gray. It didn't have water that I saw, but it did have maybe organisms, not life, but organisms. And so that's why it was so easy for her to be able to identify, assess, and bring them back into balance, because it's not like she had a whole planet of 6 billion beings on it that she had to wrangle their energy. It was just the energy of the planet itself, and then whatever organisms were on the planet. So there wasn't a lot of resistance there.
So when you speak about the energy of the planet, where does this energy of the planet come from if there are no beings on it?
When you have a soul in any form, it can be a planet. Gaia, Earth herself, is a soul. And so when we talk about Earth's ascension, we talk about her ascension. We talk about Earth as a planet ascending, because Earth actually is an energy, has a soul. Every planet, if you want to think of it that way, has a soul. And so what she was balancing was probably that soul, which is a big soul because it's a planet, and then whatever other organisms were on the planet. And at the part in the session where I say to Marianne that she sort of skipped over that beginning part of being grass and trees and rocks in her incarnation on Earth, it's important to mention that because that's something that all of us souls do. We all decide to really get acclimated to the planet by being part of the planet. When she decided that she didn't need to do that often and realized that was probably not the best thing to do, it was because you're getting used to the energy of that particular planet.
So the balancing of energy that we're talking about is something that her soul does. It's not something that she as a human being does.
Correct. So when she was on that planet, she didn't have a body. It was just her soul.
And in the same way that, I mean, she has a body now, but
Mhm.
it's still not something that she actively does in her existence as Marianne.
True. It's mostly her soul's job. I do have to say, though, that it does permeate through your human experience, though. You're led by your soul. So in her human experiences, that will sort of trickle down. Grid workers are a really good example of that. So grid worker energies are souls that work with the energy grids on the planet, and they help repair them. They help create harmony in particular places where maybe there was disharmony. And those particular souls might not know that they're grid workers, but all of a sudden they find themselves moving all over the place. They can't stay in one place for long. They move every couple of years, or they travel every couple of years. You know, it's those people that are constantly moving, and that's usually a pretty good indication that that's one of their soul's jobs, is to repair the earth grids.
So because they need to be in different places, and so then their 3D reality, for whatever reason, takes them to different places, or they get the urge to go to a different place. They don't necessarily know why they're doing it in terms of their soul's work, but they still do it.
Correct.
What about being a guardian of a planet? What does that actually mean?
I'm going to channel that bit because I actually don't know. Guardians are a really exciting topic for me to talk about. I love talking about guardians. They are important. They're incredibly important for every single planet, and every planet has guardians. There's a reason for that. It's energetic. It's like a web, if you will, of energy that sort of surrounds the planet, that is created by these guardians' energy, that allows an element of protection while whatever experience is happening. So you allow there to be an element of a force field, if you will, around a planet. And that's what the guardians do. They allow the experiment or the experience to go on unhindered. If you look at the reason why maybe there haven't been big catastrophes like planets crashing into other planets, or stars crashing into planets, asteroids, those types of things. And although I do know that you and this human experience love making these movies, but the reason why these things don't happen is because of this guardian force field that is around the planet. It is protection, and it is there for a reason. In addition, these guardians help keep balance of the souls that are on the planet, to make sure there are not too many souls on the planet, to make sure that there is a balance in that. Because if there are too many souls on the planet, the soul's energy will get smaller and smaller and will not be able to expand. And the whole purpose of this experience here on Earth is for all of the souls to be able to expand their energy and ascend their energy. And in order to do that, there must be space, energetic space, to do so. Mostly nothing happens without the guardian's knowledge. The guardian is the next level of defense, if you will, between the dimensions, allowing things to move through into the physical if they need to, assisting with the gateways when souls cross over from the human form to the spirit form. They have a big job. They're here to do quite a lot. Their energy is big. As there are only 17 of them, they need to do this job effectively. These are usually souls who have bigger energy fields themselves and know exactly how to use the energy that they have.
Thank you, Akula. I'm glad that we gave him the opportunity to talk about something that he enjoys talking about.
Yeah.
Which is one hell of a job.
He did give me a little glimpse when I was in the channel that they're responsible for, some of the natural disasters that happened because population control.
I literally had that thought as you were talking about it. I was like, so COVID was...
Well, interestingly enough, COVID was an exit point for many, many souls. So because of Earth and her ascension, the energies are getting to be higher. And if you're still in very, very, very low energy, it's going to become very, very uncomfortable to be here on this planet. So during COVID, basically, there were exit points for all of those people who decided to cross over. And I'm not saying that it was everybody, but a majority of the people who died during that time, they basically decided, okay, I'm going to check out, come back in a new body that will be able to sustain and house the energies that I'll be going into.
Fascinating. And we will be talking about exit points a little bit later on.
Yeah.
To really delve deeper into that particular very interesting subject matter. But here's a question in relation to the natural disasters and exit points, because presumably we only leave this body at a time that we have decided to do so. So when a natural disaster happens, it's people exiting at their predetermined end of life point.
Again, for the most part, it is decided. When you think about some of the disasters that have happened, and within every disaster, there's always some miracle that happens where somebody survived something, or there's always some story about, oh, I was supposed to be there and my plane got delayed, or, whatever that happens to be. That was, and I'm getting super chills. It's that protection of that soul who didn't sign up to have that experience. Of the souls that die in those natural disasters, yes, a lot of them do know that that's what's coming. Because if you think about it with the natural disasters and how the guardians orchestrate it, they know where, when, how, and it's not a mistake. So it's a balancing of Earth and her energy, and it's a balance of us and our energy on this planet. So it's hard to stomach sometimes because it's a little cold, it's a little detached. But when you look at it from the standpoint of how almost every single soul on this planet has had thousands of lives, in the grand scheme of things, we've all been in probably several disasters. So, it's kind of old hat to most of us. What's one more,
Go back and try again.
Yeah, exactly.
This particular subject matter it's bringing up a lot of memories for me, because I remember during September 11th, which was kind of the first big major global disaster that is clear in my memory. And I remember that being the first time that I came across this concept of group deaths not being accidental. It was actually my mom that had said it to me. And I remember at the time just thinking, that's a crazy idea. I mean, how can all of this be orchestrated? Of course, having very little understanding on everything is orchestrated on a bigger scale. But this particular concept, I think if you're not accustomed to it, if you haven't heard it before, it can be quite confronting and mind-boggling.
Yeah, I mean, and it's hard to really accept that sometimes, and especially if you have loved ones who were in a disaster, or you've lost somebody in a disaster. It can be really hard to accept that they made that decision, but you have to understand that it's not their human self specifically that made the decision, it's their soul. Granted, their higher self and their soul and their body, like it's all connected, so they know, so to speak. But yeah, it can be difficult. I mean, yeah, September 11th is a really good example, because I remember so many stories coming out of that saying, oh, I was supposed to be in there and I was delayed and I missed my train and all of those things. And, if you consider how many people died versus how many people were working in the buildings, I think it was something like 80,000 people worked in those towers. And I think it was 4,000 that died. So the timing of it.
And I'm getting chills as you're talking about this.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was a little bit of a side tangent. Let's come back to Marianne. Now, you said that once her job on her planet that she was on was done, once the energy was balanced, she decided to come to Earth, and that it was one of the more difficult things that a soul can do at this time. Do you know what that was in reference to?
It's in reference to the fact that this planet is one of the lower energy planets around. I have not seen a planet that is in lower energy than we are. Not to say that there aren't others that are as bad or worse, but at this present moment, Earth is the only one out in the galaxy right now that is as sort of low vibrational as we are.
So it's a little bit confronting to know that we are one of the lowest frequency planets around, but also weirdly comforting to know that the kind of stuff that's going on our planet, nothing worse than that is happening elsewhere. So coming back to soul purpose, you mentioned that as souls, when we come to Earth, we tend to incarnate as starting from plants, flowers, animals, trees, etc.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of a weird question. Mm-hmm. Is everything on our planet, plants, animals, grass, trees, does all of that have a soul in it that will sooner or later be a human being?
Yes and no. So yes, that is the case. So what I've been shown is that there will be some plants that will have souls and some don't. If you imagine an energy just deciding to go hang out in my hibiscus plant, so like you're a soul and you're like, oh, I think I'm going to be a hibiscus plant for a little bit. And so that soul is having that experience. So yes, we do come here and we experience being plants and animals and rocks and mountains and all kinds of things, water, just to get acclimated to the energy of the planet. And so you might be a flower for a day. You might be a rock for 10 years. And, rocks don't really go many places. They kind of stay. So you're not going to be staying in the rock the entire time it's a rock. You're going to pop in and pop out. It just really depends on the soul and how much they decided to do those things. There are some souls that are fairies that have spent a lot of time with Earth and really do enjoy incarnating with earthly things. And there are certain collective souls of animals that really love being the collective souls of animals, and they stay that way. And then some actually sort of break off from that collective soul of animals and become pets. And once they become pets or individualized soul, if you will, they break off from the collective soul, then they might decide to incarnate as human, or they might go be a flower, or they might go do something else. So it's all like, it's the same concept of divine source energy breaking off from divine source energy into smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller parts.
And so you never know when you're looking at a flower or your cat, if that's going to be your husband, brother, sister, mother, son in a future lifetime.
Totally.
Okay, so I guess we should be nice to all beings.
Everyone. Although I really, mosquitoes. I'm sorry for all of my family, all of my friends, all of my soul family, even myself, if I've ever been a mosquito. I'm sorry. But you had to die.
Admittedly, I kind of feel like that's the life they're signing up for. So, exit points. Full circle moment.
I'm wondering if it's like, if you decide to incarnate as a mosquito, it's a game. Let's see how long you can live. I made it 26 hours.
Many exit points.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
All right, cool. So coming back to Marianne, now you said that her energy hovers above the earth, about 6 feet above the earth. So we talk about being grounded a lot as humans, but in this particular context of energy, where her energy is not grounded because it hovers above the earth, what does that actually mean?
I'll use an analogy. It's like diving into a kiddie pool versus diving into the deep end. So if you imagine the pool is the full extent of the human experience. So you're getting all the heaviness, all of the awfulness, all of the beauty, all of the everything. So you're getting the full human experience. Jumping in the deep end would be being fully grounded in the experience. You're having all of the experiences. Being in the kiddie pool would be you're dipping your toe in. Maybe you have a foot in or an ankle, but that's it. And the reason for that is because that there are certain souls that need to stay separate than the heavy energy in order to be able to effectively do their job.
Okay, so in terms of then her life experience, what does it mean for her? Does it just mean that she feels less?
It doesn't necessarily mean you feel less because your human experience is still your human experience. It means that if you go through a trauma or if you go through something that's pretty difficult, your soul isn't going to get wrapped up in the psychic debris of that event. There have been many accounts of people saying that when, let's say they're in a car accident or near-death experience, that their soul literally pops out of the body. And that's self-preservation, essentially. So the soul will do that in order to not get all the psychic debris of that experience. I actually had a client recently, and that I've been working with for a little while, where one of the first couple of sessions we did was to get her soul to feel comfortable to come back in her body, because her soul basically popped out of her body several lifetimes ago because of a really big traumatic death, and basically was like, nope, I'm not going back down there. I'm going to hang out up here. So it was almost like her soul was like on a string with a balloon, like hovering above her body. So her soul wasn't fully integrated into her body. And so we worked on integrating her soul, and she felt it. She felt when her soul was able to ground into her body. And to this day, she still tells me, she's like, oh yeah, I've been working on it. And now I feel like it's like 95% of the time it's grounded in my body, but I can feel when it wants to go away. I can feel it go. It is important to understand the function of the soul and the fact that your soul does have self-preservation as well.
And why would a soul need self-preservation if a soul is indestructible?
Well, it's not about destruction. It's about being stuck. Because if you have enough psychic debris, then you end up becoming one of those, souls that are stuck here on earth, not able to cross over. And that's what mediums do to help those souls cross over. So in order for the soul to not have to have that experience, some souls might decide, hey, I'm not gonna have that experience. I'm gonna be over here now.
So in Maryanne's case, that's what she tends to do.
Well, in Maryanne's case, her case is a little bit different because it's not that her soul is trying to self-preserve. That's just the nature of her soul. So the nature of her soul is to just not be so grounded in the shadow of this planet. So she's meant to be in a lighter energy overall. And I've seen several people who have been like that in my sessions.
Including myself.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Just so everybody knows, I forget all of my sessions. Literally all of them. Like,
Yeah, I remember some of them.
yeah. Like the second the session is done and the records are closed, within 15, 20 minutes, all of the information is gone.
Speaking of self-preservation.
Yeah, right. No, it's true. Yeah. So even speaking on this podcast, like half the time I forget what I say. And then I listen back when I'm editing and I'm like, huh.
Good thing we have it recorded.
Exactly.
One of Maryanne's soul purposes is being able to appreciate the beauty on our planet. And we talk about the duality of this planet and how the contrast in energy on this planet makes the appreciation of this beauty more intense. Why does the duality make us appreciate things more?
It's just the context. The best way that I can describe it is if you have, let's say, a fire, and the fire is just existing as flames, and the fire doesn't know anything else. The fire is just burning and has no context of anything else other than itself. And then let's say it meets wind. And in the contrast of the wind, it might look hot or angry, and the wind might look fast and cold. And so when the fire is observing the wind, it can see the difference between itself and the wind. But if there is no wind, the fire has no context for what it is. And that in and of itself is a beautiful explanation as to why our souls have these experiences. Because we have to have the experience of other souls, other contrasts, to be able to identify and have other experiences of your own self.
We need to know the other to know ourselves.
Yeah. When I'm in a channel and when I'm in the records, everything feels very, very, very neutral. There's not a whole lot of emotion going on. There's not a whole lot of, oh God, I can't believe that happened. It's a very neutral energy. And that is very much the energy of spirit. And it's not to say spirit doesn't feel happy and love and all of those things. It is, but it is not an extreme version of that. If you can imagine, let's say, the Grand Canyon, to stand on the edge of the Grand Canyon and to have that feeling and that emotion that wells up. That's part of the beauty that we have here, is we have the range of emotions. And I get a complaint sometimes about, like, why don't my guides understand what we're going through? Why can't they understand how hard it is? And I've actually said this to my guides, like, can't you guys understand how difficult this is? Are you serious? Can you not understand? And they're like, no. And I'm like, empathy much? Like, come on, But it's true, because they're not feeling the density and the contrast to the extent that we are. So it's really hard sometimes for them to relate. They're going to be matter of fact about a lot of things. No less loving, but still just not as reactive, if you will.
This is a really good reminder to appreciate all of our experiences, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think we're so conditioned to chase the good stuff and get away from the bad stuff. And it's a really good reminder to be able to appreciate all of it.
Yeah.
And I have a friend who was very good at kind of really enjoying the sadness that would sometimes come over him. And I just remember thinking, wow, it's actually a really beautiful thing to like delve into your sadness and really like enjoy it, which sounds like a crazy thing to say, but that's what it did. And when you think about that there is a place where none of that exists, it actually starts to make the idea of enjoying all the different things not so crazy.
Beautifully said.
Mm.
Yeah. Well, and if you think about, we do enjoy those sad moments sometimes. Think about the times when you see a sad movie and you're crying. That's enjoying the sadness, right?
It is, but I think we tend to find it easier to enjoy someone else's sadness when it's on a TV screen. We don't tend to enjoy our own sadness.
I think I was a weird kid because I think I did enjoy my sadness. I mean, I was the one holed up in my room listening to The Cure, and, Disintegration is a brilliant album, but it is also probably one of the most depressing. So I wrapped in that sadness like a blanket, man. I loved it.
Well, you know what? That actually makes sense because that explains that a whole generation of goth kids and emo kids.
Exactly. Yeah. I was a perky goth, but I was still a goth. Yeah.
But point being, you were good at enjoying the full spectrum of life's experience, which I think is something that we can all benefit from.
Definitely.
So Marianne was really pleased to hear her soul origin and her soul purpose. It really made a difference for her to have this knowledge. Is that a sentiment that you find echoed often in your sessions?
Yeah, it happens often where either clients know already, they kind of felt it within themselves, they kind of knew, but maybe didn't know how to put the words to it. So it's basically my channel through my guides or me being able to connect the dots for them and just say, this is the verbal description of what you've been feeling, which is incredibly validating, I think, for them. There is also the other reaction, which is, wow, that's a lot I need to process. And that happens quite often as well. And most of the time, I will get an email maybe a month or two later saying, oh my gosh, now I understand and everything else. So like sometimes it does take a little while to land. I had a client who I did a soul origin for, and he was born out of a supernova. And it was new information for me. I had never channeled that before. And maybe 4 weeks later, he sends me a message. And actually, he sent me the message when you and I were in Saint-Malo. And I guess he looked on the internet, and apparently there's like a whole thing talking about souls born out of supernovas. Apparently it's a thing that you can research on the internet. So yeah, it's surprising to me as well, because I get information that I have no idea about. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. And then when I get that validation coming from the clients, it's pretty cool. It's nice.
Yeah, that's validation coming right back
Exactly.
at you.
Yeah.
So you just brought up Saint-Malo, which interestingly brings me to my next point, which is your soul origin.
Mm-hmm.
So for a little bit of background story, we did a little road trip. We were in Saint-Malo in Bretagne, and Saint-Malo is for those who don't know, is a very historic place on the coast of France. And we happened to be there on Assumption Day. There was a beautiful procession happening, and we just happened to have ended up accidentally part of this procession, but it was a really beautiful event. And I remember that you had received kind of unexpectedly a little message. Mm-hmm. You care to share with us what that was?
Yeah. So the little message that I got was that I was one of the originals.
And I asked you, what does that mean? And you said?
I have no idea. And the funny thing is, I never checked into it again, which is so like me, because I get these little bits of information and then I just don't investigate further, which is madness, because I have all of this access to this universal knowledge. And for whatever reason, I have a tendency not to access it for myself. Now, when I first started using the records, I was looking at my stuff all the time. I was like, oh, cool, I'm going to look at this stuff for me and da da da. But now that I do this for everybody else, like it doesn't dawn on me to do it for myself.
Well, I think this is one of those little ironies of our lives. We have chefs that cook 5-star meals and then go home and eat a sandwich. Yeah. And that's just what happens in our lives.
It's true.
But since we're talking about soul origin, we know that you are one of the originals. How about we investigate what that means?
Sure. I'd be delighted to.
So we're about to delve into Annette's own soul origin.
Okay, so I wanted to see what kind of visuals they were going to give me first, because sometimes they give me a couple of little visuals before I dive into the channel. The first thing that I was sort of opening into was like a speedy walkthrough of the universe. Like, so I'm seeing stars and planets and all sorts of things go by. And then Akula is pointing at 3 bright stars, and they're triangulated. They're just saying that's important for later. Okay. The next thing they're showing me is divine source energy as an original source, meaning that it was sort of before it started having experiences. So it was just an energy. And then there were planets, and there were stars and those types of things. Okay. So the originals are the original souls, the very first souls who broke off from divine source energy. So I was broken off from divine source energy into 3 different stars. I became these stars. These were the stars where I had experiences. The triangulation was the communication between myself and myself in all 3 of these stars, communicating what happened, possible distances, information in general. The most common thing on your planet to talk about when it comes to creation would be the Big Bang. If you consider the souls who broke off from divine source energy during that time were the original souls. Not all of divine source energy broke off into separate parts. There was a great part of divine source energy that sort of stayed intact and let those other smaller pieces have the initial experiences. Those initial experiences of what it was like to become planets or gases or stars, galaxies, black holes, all of the things in the universe. It was having that initial experience that created excitement. It created the knowledge that needed to happen in order for things to progress the way that they did. Once divine source energy realized from the originals the amount of information that could change and be experienced, it's what started all of the experiences to evolve and happen, all of the planets to evolve and change. So you experienced your first incarnation, if you will, outside of divine source energy. All 3 of the stars that you were embodied in collided to create a new energy. You experienced that expansion of energy and you returned to source. You've had many iterations of what your soul was meant to do. You have been doing this for a very long time. If you consider what you would call newer souls, it's not that they're new, they're still part of divine source energy. They just broke off from divine source energy at a later point than you did. That's what we mean by the originals. You were the original souls to break off from divine source energy, so therefore you have had the longest amount of time, if you will, even though there is no time, but you've had the longest amount of experience as a soul, having experiences from divine source energy. Okay. What does that have to do with me as a soul now in terms of how that impacts my soul and what I'm here to do? All of Annette's channels are completely open. She is a receiver. She receives all information. Every single person on this planet has access to all information. It's just whether or not they can really see it or read it or feel it. It's why it's been so important for her to do shadow work in this lifetime and many other lifetimes. Because all of her channels are open, they have a tendency to be clogged up by the contrast energy, by the shadow energy very easily. So she needs to keep them clear. When she is in that shadow energy, it makes it very, very difficult for her to connect in. And while that is the case for most people, it's the difference between hearing somebody as they're speaking in your ear versus hearing somebody if you were underwater. It's a vast difference in clarity for her experience. It's not that she has greater abilities than others. She has the same abilities as everybody else. She's just been doing them much longer. And we do want to say also that there are others who are part of the originals. Many, many others. It's not like there's just 1 or 2. There are millions. So from this standpoint, being an original gives you the ability to shine brighter when you work through that shadow, to be able to guide others. Okay, thank you.
How did that feel?
Fine. I mean, it kind of felt like non-information, didn't it?
Well, I would say that the fact that you have experienced like all of the development of matter is kind of interesting.
Yeah, that is, I guess so. I still love cats though. So, what does that say about the universe? In all of the universe, you know what it is about? Cats. It's always about cats.
Well, Eckhart Tolle did famously say that he's lived with many Zen masters, most of them cats.
Yes.
So there's probably something in that.
Mm-hmm.
But you, Annette, are stardust, literally stardust, who has experienced the Big Bang and basically everything since.
Well, I guess I kind of was the Big Bang, right? Like I was part of that. Yeah.
Puts life into perspective, doesn't it?
So do you want to hear yours?
It's a hard act to follow, frankly.
Come on.
But who's going to say no to that?
You may be one of those like higher level beings.
You mean like above a cat?
Above a cat, yeah. I'm going to ground myself nice and solidly. Thank you to Akula, my Akashic guide. Thank you for opening up the records for Julia. So we're looking at Julia's soul origin. Akula's funny. He's like, hers is better than yours. So you were one of the first group of souls after the Big Bang. So they were showing me like when my soul was in the Big Bang or experienced the Big Bang. Like when you experience an explosion like that, like a ripping apart of energy, it's uncomfortable. It's traumatic even. Like it's not a happy little event, right? And not to say that my soul was feeling pain like we would feel pain in, human sense, but like it's a big event. And I'm seeing you break off from divine source energy just after that with your soul family, almost like you're tourists going, wow, look at everything that just happened. That's so cool. So essentially right after the whole universe was created, that's when you broke off from divine source energy. And you basically, it was like the whole universe was your oyster. Like you had your choice of what to do, where to go, who to be. You could do whatever you wanted. And so this particular soul family, you wanted to experience gravity in all of its different forms. Each planet has a different gravity. And it was almost like you and your soul family were a little bit like Goldilocks. So you went from planet to planet to sort of test how dense it was and test the gravity of the planet and see what felt resonant for you, to see what felt good for you. You went to 6 different planets before you found one that was comfortable for you to start. It was a red planet. This first planet you decided to incarnate on, it was full of crystals. It was full of swirling, sparkling array of matter. And it felt good for your soul and your soul family to just experience what that planet was. You didn't incarnate on that planet as a being. You were simply an energy experiencing that planet. It's almost like a child getting used to swimming in an ocean. You were very brand new as a soul in terms of having this new experience. You were feeling the swirling of the gases and the energy. You were feeling the sharpness of the surface. You might ask how you can feel as a soul, but it is still energy. You still do feel, maybe not in the same way that you do in your human form or in an incarnated form, but you do still feel. You spent several thousand years just experiencing this planet, which is a second in the whole grand scheme of things. You stayed together with your soul family every single place you went to. There were many souls who broke off in their soul family and decided to have different experiences. You and your soul family stayed together for literally every single experience you have ever had since you broke off from divine source energy. You may be asking yourself, okay, well, where are these people? They are here. Not all of them, but they are here on this planet. You have met a few. You will meet more. It is part of the reason why you feel a little bit more separate, because you're so used to being connected to them at all times, that when you are so-called disconnected, which you never are, but when you feel disconnected in this human form, you feel it much more deeply. You love the beauty that you experience in each one of these incarnations. I'm seeing this red planet, and it's like, if I'm looking at it from like an outside view, it's beautiful. It looks like a marble. It's very swirling and sparkly, and it's what you appreciate about it. You experience so many other planets with so much beauty, and you wanted to experience one of the most beautiful planets there are. And in order to do that, you needed to continue to have more contrasting experiences. Earth is not the most beautiful planet. There are others that are more beautiful, but it is one of extreme experiences. In order to experience that level of beauty, you also have to experience the level of shadow or lack of beauty as you are on this planet. Now you can look back on some of your other experiences on the other planets and appreciate the beauty for what it is because of the context that you now have. You are an observer, you are an integrator, and you are an alchemist. Okay. Questions, comments?
Okay. What is an integrator and an alchemist? Observer, I can deduce, but would like an expansion on the other two.
So an integrator is a soul that is able to take experience from one place and bring it to another. And then the alchemist is to be able to then change whatever that is into something new.
Can we just ask one more question, which is this information about my soul origin / purpose? How is that applicable to my 3D life, or how can I apply it to my 3D life, or should I?
Well, you already are. Being a creator, I mean, that's what you're meant to do. You see the beauty in all things. And it's exactly how you stated earlier about being able to see the beauty in some of the things that are not so beautiful, as well as the absolutely beautiful. So being able to see the beauty in all is what you do. And that's how you create. And it's almost as if you're creating and presenting it to somebody and saying, like, this is what you can do. You're leading by example. This is what you can do. And anyone can do it. And so with that brings that joy, is to empower people to know that they have the ability to do anything that they want to do. No matter if they've been given a pile of leaves and a pile of dirt and a gold coin, you're going to alchemize all of that into something super cool. I have no idea what you would make out of those 3 things, but you would. And you would say, look, isn't this fun?
Wow, cool. Oh, that's really beautiful to hear. So many goosebumps all the way up my spine whilst you've been talking. Like, there's just been so many moments of chills.
Mm-hmm. Confirmation.
This is the amazing thing that happens during these readings. You don't know until you know what it actually feels like, how the resonance goes like deep into your soul when you hear this information.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I'm going to close the Akashic Records for Julia. Thank you, Akula. As usual, you're amazing. The records are closed, the records are closed, and the records are closed. Beautiful.
Thank you, Annette. And thank you, Akula. And on today's episode, we heard Marianne's soul origin, soul purpose. And the next episode will be part 2 of that, where we actually delve further into her session and into her experience with twin flames, which incidentally, Annette, is one of your favorite topics.
Well, it is a topic that I'm well versed in, given the fact that I've had the twin flame experience for many, many, many lifetimes. So yeah, I'm quite familiar with the journey and how it unfolds for myself. And other twin flames have a tendency to gravitate towards other twin flames. It just sort of happens energetically.
So it's guaranteed to be a juicy conversation that we have.
Yes, indeed.
Fabulous. Can't wait for it.
Me too. It'll be fun. Until next time.
Till next time.
If you would like to get in touch with either Julia or myself, feel free to head to my website at infinitesoullove.com. You can also follow me on all social media at infinitesoullove1111. And that is on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. Thanks so much, and see you next week.